Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today's video we're centering around this Mason Greenwood situation. As today, of course, it has been revealed by Manchester United that he will no longer be continuing his football career at Old Trafford. United are set to terminate his contract and he will no longer be a Manchester United player going forward. This is at the end of 18 or so months of investigation by obviously the Crown Prosecution Service. And obviously Manchester United, once of course the charges were dropped against Greenwood before they could go to court, today the result has been that Greenwood will not be a Manchester United player. Therefore he will be free to go to whichever club wants to take him. He can resume his football career, but it won't be at Manchester United. A lot to digest and talk about in this story. Now, before we go any further, I want to say right off the bat that I understand how delicate and sensitive an issue this is. I understand how fragile this is and how this can be very sensitive and a delicate topic for certain people. So I will try and handle this to the best of my ability in balancing that aspect. But along with that, I will also be open and honest, as I always am, and try and be with any situation that I talk about, really. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way and done with. I don't mean to cause any offence. I don't mean to cause any harm. If I'm not trying to in any way try and be funny in this video or anything, this is just my thoughts and feelings on this particular matter. So the statements are out today that Greenwood will no longer be a United player. The statement comes out from Manchester United, and let's be real, this, in my opinion, hasn't been handled well by the club. I think the club have not handled this very well. We know obviously the story before the club got fully involved in their own investigation that Greenwood had allegations against him of domestic abuse. There were audio clips that were put out into the public domain on social media. There was also photos that were put out by the alleged victim that were put out on social media as well. And the court of public opinion basically threw the book at him. They wanted him gone. That was it. There was no explanation, no time for any sort of explanation. A lot of people instantly believed that he was guilty, and that was that. Obviously, over time, enough evidence was seemingly gathered by the Crown Prosecution Service and the police and everything to charge Greenwood and to obviously try and take the charges to court, but they never made it that far. Allegedly, victims dropped out, new evidence was brought to life that put the case in a different perspective, and therefore the case was thrown out. And in the eyes of the law, Greenwood is seemingly innocent. Now, whether he is or not has divided people, but in the eyes of the law, he is. He's done nothing wrong because he's not been taken to court from it. Now, like I say, this has divided a lot of people. It's caused massive controversy as to whether or not Greenwood's got away with it, Greenwood is actually innocent, whether Greenwood should continue in football, whether he shouldn't continue in football, and on a specific level, whether he should continue at Manchester United or not. Once it left the prosecution service and once the case was dropped, Manchester United then took over the investigation. I don't think they've handled it very well. I think it's baffling that it's taken this long, right, first and foremost. I'm surprised it's taken this long. I don't think it should have taken this long, but here we are many months later after the case was dropped and we finally come to a decision. I don't think it was handled great. I also don't think last week's statement was handled great either. Last week, United put out a statement that was basically teeing up a major decision. It said that they had obviously been looking at this Greenwood situation. They've been analysing it from all different angles, and they were ready to give a verdict on whether or not Greenwood will stay or whether he will go. To me, that statement last week sounded like they were trying to test the waters of the public domain to see what the reaction would be to Greenwood staying. It sounded to me like they'd already sort of made up their minds and started to maybe put a plan of action involved in which Greenwood will be slowly integrated back into the senior squad and back into Manchester United. There was actually discussion of that in the statements that were made today, that they'd obviously discussed a lot of different ways and explored the different ways that this could go. And one of them obviously was to bring Greenwood back into the fold and how that would go. I reckon last week's statement was maybe part of it. And I can't obviously say for sure, and there'll be no way of knowing for sure whether that was the case or not. I would suspect it might have been. The way it was worded, the way it sounded to me, sounded like they were planning on maybe bringing him back and just seeing what the public response would be to that. I think once it backfired, I think once maybe sponsorships got involved and said, we're uncomfortable with having this guy represent us with our logos and all our sponsors on him, and where charities got involved as well and said that they were uncomfortable by their decision to maybe bring him back. And then people in Manchester United were seemingly uncomfortable. People in power and politicians and things were seemingly uncomfortable. I think that's when United started to backtrack. And that's where they decided to maybe cut their losses in some ways. Like, again, I'm speculating on this. But would it have taken this long if this had been about a player that admittedly wouldn't have had much of a future at Manchester United? Maybe he was a youngster that was never really going to make it to the senior level. He was always going to be loaned out or sold somewhere once he turned of a certain age. Would they have taken this long to have made the decision then? Would they have took this long to make a decision then if it had been a senior squad member that obviously was looking to be on his way out, or maybe Ten Hag was looking to get out anyway? I'm just wondering if that would have been the case as to why, because there's no doubt about it. This guy on a footballing level was the next best thing. This guy had so much potential. This guy had so much going for him in terms of being a youngster, bursting onto the scene, scoring plenty of goals and making a name for himself in the Manchester United academy. He was seemingly head and shoulders above the rest and destined for bigger and better things. But now it's all been thrown away, and now it's all crumbling down around him. And I guess the talent may still be there, but he's missed out on a good few years of development if, of course, he is to be proven innocent. If he genuinely is seen as being innocent, that is. And the fact of the matter is like I say, I don't think United have handled the situation in the best way they could have done, and I understand the difficulty of handling a situation like this, but I still think they could have gone about it better. I still think that they probably should have, in my opinion, wash their hands of this thing. I think they still should have washed their hands of this thing sooner than what they did. I think that this situation, they should have just cut ties with Mason Greenwood altogether, whether he was proven to be innocent or not, unless there was huge and substantial and essential evidence that presented itself that obviously stated, and without a shadow of a doubt, that Greenwood was definitely innocent. I think they should have cut all ties. I think they probably should have cut all ties. If there was evidence that turned this case on its head, bring that to light. Bring that to the public domain and say, this is why, this is what happened, this is the evidence we found, this is why Greenwood is innocent, and this is why he will continue at Manchester United. Instead, what has seemingly happened is they've said he's innocent and then decided to get rid of him anyway. Explain to me how that one works. How can you be innocent but then be gotten rid of anyway? They said that there was newfound evidence that seemingly put old evidence into a better light. They basically said, without stating it directly, that, of course, the audio clips and the photos that were put out into the public domain on social media by the alleged victim had a reason behind, and that all parties were seemingly on the same page when it came to explaining the backstory, I guess you'd say, of all of those things being brought to life into the public domain what the context was behind it and everything. So if that is the case, release it. Release it, say why, because at the moment the court of public opinion is basically angry that he's continuing in football, angry that he's free, for the most part anyway. Most of them, or maybe even half of them, are angry about that. So if that is true, say it, state it. And if it is true, why are you then getting rid of him? If you're convinced to an extent that he is definitely innocent, why are you getting rid of him? That bit doesn't make sense to me. Genuinely does not make sense to me, that. United's investigation, like I say, took, in my opinion, way too long. In my opinion, their wording of that statement, I can't believe they actually released it without actually rereading it or thinking that we should have changed a few words, changed a few phrases. Baffling to me, their PR team. And Greenwood's statement wasn't better either. Greenwood said basically he respected the decision, that he understood the decision, and that he didn't want to be a distraction for a club like Manchester United. Again, if that is the reason why they got rid of him rather than his innocence, I don't buy it. I don't buy it because, yeah, I've said it before, England football fans are the worst, and if they sense any slight weakness, they will go on you and they will abuse you, or they will make fun of you, or whatever the case may be, from obviously the chants in the stands. If he's genuinely that innocent, you ride out that wave of abuse, and then a few months down the line, if he's genuinely innocent, you've put out what you've found, you've put out the fact he's innocent, you've put out the fact that he's going to be still a player at the club and still represent Manchester United. You ride out that wave of abuse until obviously people get bored of it and people move on. That to me is what you would do in that situation if he was that innocent. To me, he never has been innocent. This is just my thoughts on it, and obviously this is all alleged, but the way that this case was dropped, the way that we obviously heard the evidence and saw the evidence in the public domain that was released right off the bat in this, obviously, investigation, he never has been innocent, in my opinion. I don't know how you can fake the audio clips. I don't know how they can be taken out of context. I don't know how the photos could be edited or faked. Well, I mean, they could be, but I don't understand what the victim would have to gain from this. Don't understand why that would be the case, but they seem to allude to the fact that obviously those things had a backstory to them and had reason as to why they were the way that they were. I also don't understand how, and this is the main one, a player with his potential, his ability, his rising star to fame and fame and fortune in football, I don't understand how a player with all that going for him goes back to someone, if they have lied, and goes and has their kid. You've just accused a man of the worst thing that is possible for a man to do to a woman, and you decided that, well, I know I'm innocent, but I'll go back to her anyway, and now we'll start a family. That never sat right with me, and I know it didn't sit right with a lot of people either. It was strange. I don't think no man ever goes back to a woman that has accused him of doing the things that she accused him of. Especially for a person of, like I say, his potential, his ability, and the rising star he was having at Manchester United at that time. I don't understand how you can go back to them, start a family, and just act like nothing happened. It's strange to me, and it always did seem to me that he was guilty simply because of that one part of this case. Don't get me wrong, I think Manchester United reached the right point here, and I think they reached the right decision. But to me, like I say, it's been a strange way of getting there. It has been a messy way of getting there. It's been a horrible way of getting there. And like I say, I still don't think he's innocent. I think it's strange the way that it's been handled by the club. I think Greenwood hasn't handled it great either. But, and I know, like I say, this is a controversial topic, and I know a lot of people are going to have their thoughts on this, and they're going to have their say on this, and they're not going to be happy, some of them, and some of them are going to be happy. And at the end of the day, whether you sit on one side of the fence or the other, I think you've just got to A, get on with it, and B, just understand the thoughts of people on the other side of things, and just be a bit more understanding, basically, on both counts, because it's a horrible situation to be in. No one's a winner in this situation whatsoever. And like I say, United have reached this point now, and the hope, therefore, is that whether we like it or not, nothing's going to be done about Greenwood taking it any further. Greenwood is no longer going to be a part of Manchester United. As far as this part of the story goes, it's done and dusted. Now, where does Greenwood go from here? Well, in my opinion, he can't stay in England. He cannot stay in England. There's absolutely no way, and I don't think any club would really take him in England, at least not on a top flight level, which is why he needs to go abroad. He'll need to go abroad. He'll need to rebuild over abroad if he wants to maintain and stay in football. It'll be very interesting to see what the next move is for Mason Greenwood. But like I say, it is a very horrible and very delicate situation. One that I felt the need to comment on. And also, I want to also know your thoughts and comments and opinions and predictions as well. These are just mine, but I want to know your guys' thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings as well on this particular topic. I want to know what you guys think on this whole Mason Greenwood situation. Thank you all for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see you speak to you all again soon in another video. Thank you. Take care.